Hello, welcome to my very first ASMR video. My name is Andre, and welcome to ASMR's Deadly Sins 2011. Uh, I apologize if my English is not perfect. I am not a natural English speaker, I am Portuguese. So if I make some English speaking mistakes, my bad. Well, for my very first video and for today's video, I'm going to do something that I don't think has been done before. Something that is honestly kind of experimental, which is I'm going to be running through PCSX2, which is a PlayStation 2 emulator, and I'm going to be playing some Burnout Revenge. Burnout Revenge is a game that is a follow-up to one of my favorite games of all time, Burnout 3. It's a racing game, and it's a game that I like, but I've found that I haven't quite loved it to the extent that I thought I was going to. I've only been playing it recently for the very first time, and it has been fun, but I don't think it holds a candle to Burnout 3. I'm sorry if that is a hot take in any way. I'm also going to be running through the settings that I use for PCSX2, and hopefully that will serve as helpful for somebody who is interested in starting an emulation and wanting to get their foot into PCSX2 and just general emulation. Um, I would advise that it is something that is only recommended if you have a particularly strong PC. I have a laptop. And it's I believe it's an Asus laptop. I don't think it's no, it's an HP laptop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for messing that up. It's an HP laptop with an AMD Ryzen 3 4300U CPU and AMD Radeon RX Vega 5 GPU. It is not the strongest setup that you'll ever see. It is by no means a gaming laptop, but I do think that it's a humble enough setup that it actually works with PCSX2. The single thread rating, according to Passmark for my CPU, is over 2300, so it works just fine. It can't run super intensive games at a particularly high resolution, but it can run less demanding games at 1080p, so I do think that that's particularly good. Well, let's get started. So I open up PCSX2, which for the record is a dev build. It's 1.7.2107. It's a dev build. You can find dev builds in a link that I will leave in the description below. They are always updated. You will always find the absolute latest build available for download immediately. And I do think that the dev builds are significantly better than the versions that you actually get for download on the PCSX2 website. For those of you who don't know what this is, PCSX2 is a PlayStation 2 emulator. Emulator programs are used to emulate old consoles. There are emulators for so many consoles, like there's emulators for the Nintendo Entertainment System, there's emulators for the original PlayStation, there's emulators for the Nintendo 64, there's emulators for everything. There's even one program called RetroArch, which I have right here, which is a program that allows you to have all your emulators in one single place. You download RetroArch, and it gives you all the available emulators, and you can just download it off the RetroArch. Personally, I use PCSX2 standalone version as I do think it is better. It functions better, and it's a lot more stable since the core that exists on RetroArch is still in its infancy. But with that said, I do think that for the vast majority, RetroArch is a good solution. PCSX2 is a very CPU intensive program because the PlayStation 2 was also a very unique piece of hardware. It is not the easiest piece of hardware to emulate. Most other consoles, you can emulate them with a potato box, but in the case of PS2, you need a strong system to emulate them. Believe it or not, even though it's a system that came out in 2000 or 1999, if I'm not wrong, I do think that it is a system that deserves a lot of attention for how innovative its hardware was back in the day. It was one of the cheapest DVD players that you could find, and it could run some very powerful games even in the late run of its existence. Like Gran Turismo 4, for example, was one of the very first HD games on the PS2. And we all know that Gran Turismo 4, with a little bit of tweaking, could look like a PS3 game, so that's saying something. Well, enough rambling. Let's just get around to showing my configurations. First of all, I'm going to be selecting um, my ISO. I can't find Burnout Revenge here, but it is right here. I'm not going to be telling you how to get the ISOs for your games. You can get them anywhere you like. I would personally recommend that you rip your games directly from your CD into your computer. That way, you're actually playing games legally. That is my personal recommendation. However, you do you. If you prefer to doing it another way, that's up to you, obviously. Um, so let's get around for general settings. Personally, I play games at 16 by 9, and I have my window size personalized at 1350 to 720 because that's more or less the resolution of my computer. For the record, all this is in Portuguese. Don't mind that. But basically, this is widescreen. This is how do you want your FMVs to look if you want them to be forced to 4:3 and if you want them to be forced to 16:9. I personally have it off, and then of course you have your personalized window size or window, you know. Um, Personally, I don't really have much of anything here. The only thing that I particularly have set up here is speed hacks. For Burnout Revenge, I don't have very high resolutions, but I do have to set up my computer for a 2 EE cycle jump. EE cycle jumps accelerate the speed of your computer, um, but they might sometimes be a little incompatible with some games. That being said, if you have a low-end PC and you're finding slowdown with some games, this might be a way for you to correct that, at least with some games. I'm not going to guarantee you that it's going to work with every game, but it works with Burnout Revenge for me. I also have these two, which is an MMView hack and an MTVU hack. Both of them turned on. They're both speed hacks, basically. Well, they're all speed hacks, really. But these two are particularly functional with me. I have a 4-core CPU, so MTVU is obviously going to work very well, and then MVU hack also is recommended. We're going to apply that. Now we're going to go to graphic settings. Um, for Burnout Revenge, I don't have particularly high resolutions. Um, if I wanted to have high resolutions, I would be using Direct3D 11, and I would be going here to internal resolution, and I would be changing it to 720p or 1080p or something, and I would be having things. Um, I would be changing things up depending on how my PC could handle it. Obviously, that is going to be up to you. Personally, I find that Burnout Revenge uh, is best at native resolution for me. Otherwise, it's going to be at significant slowdown. However, if you have a powerful CPU, obviously a much more powerful CPU than mine is, you can easily push the game to a higher resolution. I've seen some people who can actually run the game at 4K, so yeah, clearly they can have much better settings than I can. However, the thing with Burnout Revenge is that it unfortunately starts buggy. It's a slightly buggy game on PCSX2. So I would recommend that in order to circumvent these bugs, you start at software mode. Software mode is basically a mode where the game is rendered mostly by your CPU. Hardware mode, or in this case, since this is a dev build that doesn't feature hardware mode, it is either Direct3D 11 or OpenGL. Software mode for me is run mostly by the CPU. The other two, Direct3D 11 and OpenGL, are mostly run by your GPU. And if you have a Windows with an AMD card, you're probably best off using Direct3D 11. If you have a NVIDIA card, you're probably best off using OpenGL. Again, that's completely up to how you have your settings. So here I have software mode, auto flush, anti-aliasing, and mip mapping. All of them, I have them set up, and also 2 extra rendering threads. I could push it up to 3 if I want to, but I'm gonna stick here with 2. Um, and I think that will be that. I won't be messing around with the hacks or the shaders or anything like that because, again, Burnout Revenge is a very demanding game for my PC, so I'm not gonna be pushing it too hard. Well, that's about that. Also, in case you want to know, my audio settings, I have it at Gaussian, so it's PS3, PS2 like sound. I have it at time stretch. I don't have async. I much prefer listening to everything synced up. And also, my module is X Audio 2. And for the record, I am using a PlayStation 5 controller. Yes, I am one of the few people in the world that actually own a PlayStation 5. And I'm using the DualSense controller. It is wired to my computer through a USB cable. I'm using that as my controller. As it is connected here as DX wireless controller. Well, let's get started. From here on out, you're going to be hearing controller sounds. Hopefully, they're relaxing, and hopefully, you can enjoy yourself a night of good rest. I'm going to be trying to not play the game too loudly, or at least not speak too loudly, in order for you to enjoy yourself and to just chill and hopefully have a good night or good afternoon or however you're using this video. So, I hope you enjoy. I'm going to be playing some events that I have not completed yet. If I do happen to suck at this game, my apologies. Right, now what we're going to do is swap to Direct3D 11. Since I already opened up the game, um, what would happen is if I had already opened it at Direct3D 11 mode, or hardware mode, if you will, the game would have had a black sky during the races. That is a common glitch with Burnout Revenge. So instead of just going through the hassle of opening the game, then having to close it down again, and then having it open up, I decided to boot the game directly in software mode, and this time the game is already functional right on the first try. Now I changed to DirectX 11 mode. I'm gonna be setting up GPU palette conversion, which is basically a trade-off between CPU and GPU, and that way you can actually um, it, it basically uh, it basically it basically helps around the CPU by having the GPU do a little bit more work, but it is not quite as CPU that way it's not as CPU intensive. And I'm not going to be setting any of these up any higher. They're pretty much already on the way. Dithering is scaled, and everything else is as is, as it's at default modes. I'm also going to be disabling hardware hacks. I didn't realize I had them turned on, and that's going to be that. So hope you enjoyed. Okay, so uh, I apologize very much for swapping between OBS and the PCSX2 inbuilt software for screen recording. It turns out that after many hours of editing, it was very difficult to find something that worked. Sometimes when I tried OBS, it wouldn't really record gameplay properly. It would record the sounds of the controllers, which I wanted to include, but it would not record gameplay. And then when I tried many other versions of the screen capture card built in PCSX2, unfortunately, gameplay was so slow that it was impossible for me to really record myself. In terms of, or not record myself, but record the sounds of the controllers that I wanted to include, because gameplay was so slow that basically I was playing in slow motion. So basically, that gameplay that you saw, I actually played it in like not even half the speed, which makes it either makes me look like a better player than I am, or not, because I actually found out that playing the game at much slower speed makes me a worse player than I usually are. But well, it is its first time. It's the first time I'm doing this. I still have to learn something, so it is what it is. I hope that ultimately you did find this relaxing. I hope that you found it informative for your, if you want to get into emulation. And I hope to see you guys soon once more. So, goodbye.